I don't entirely like the way that Spigonia's temple looks, because, well, it doesn't really stand out as obviously being Spigonia. Like, you can mistake it for Missouri pretty easily. It's not like Alaska, where it's an ice temple. Go figure, it's the ice world area. But yeah, now we're finally getting into Rooftop Run, which is easily the best stage in the HD version. But for the Wii version, you're not going to enjoy this level on your first playthrough. First off, I ran into that wall there because there was a shadow there. And, like, shadows aren't very good for making the walls instantly pop out at you in your brain. In fact, in general, the biggest problem with this level is that the walls, they're of multiple different colors and heights. So it takes a longer time for your brain to register that they're walls at all and that you should drift away from them. Plus, it's all narrow corridors instead of wide open areas where there's a much larger, wider horizon, and so there's a larger amount of time where you can react to something that's coming up. Sometimes when you boost into an enemy, especially in this level, you aren't just going to keep on boosting through them, you'll still get stopped by them. Right there, you should have boosted right after air dashing. But the thing is that when you boost when you do a homing attack chain, it screws you over. So that's not very intuitive. In those sections, you should do the quick steps. But the thing is that the entire game up to this point has trained you to think that you should drift to deal with walls. So it's not very intuitive that you have to do the quick step to avoid getting hit by walls. And with the cameras like that, it can very easily not target the enemy. Like, the enemy has to be directly behind you and the enemy directly in front of you. I don't think the adventure games ever did that. Like, there's a targeting ridicule to trick you into thinking that the homing attack is more accurate and it's always guaranteed to hit. But that's simply not the case. You are not going to enjoy this level in your first playthrough. I was not trained to drift away from fences with invisible walls right above them. I mean, I like that part, like you home attack into an enemy and then you land on a dash pad right away. And I really like this part. It's the only area in the level that actually lives up to the name, Rooftop Run. But honestly, this is the most fun that I had when I first played this level. The 2D section is the only genuinely good part of the whole level. I normally despise wall jumping in video games in general. I have Super Smash Bros. Melee to thank for that. Like, it was so precise how you're supposed to do it. But the wall jumping in this game really isn't that bad. I was able to do it successfully in my first try. So, I was pleasantly surprised. See, you boost into it, and instead of keeping on going and feeling like an unstoppable badass, you just stop for no reason whatsoever. The ranking system in the Wii Day stages are a lot more focused on time. As you can see from the fact that there's always a time and a rank limit on the northwest corner. And that's good, you know, I think that's how ranking should be in Sonic games. It shouldn't at all be based on how much rings you have or how many enemies you killed. When, by definition, getting a whole bunch of rings and killing a whole bunch of enemies will make it take longer to beat the stage. You gotta quick step multiple times in a row one direction to avoid the missiles. But when you first play this level, the missiles look like they're just wandering around aimlessly and therefore they're unpredictable. So, it's not... I just prefer the Apato's version of that. In general, this is not a level that you're going to enjoy when you first play it. I mean, I find it quite enjoyable now that I memorized it. But when you first play it, you're going to be constantly boosting into walls because they don't instantly register in your mind as walls. And of course you have this mission. Like, it's also a pain in the ass. But at least it's not as bad as the Alaska mission. But yeah, it feels so easy to get cheated out of rings here. You might think that you can just do the light speed dash a whole bunch, But the problem is that the Lightspeed Dash doesn't like to work. And like if you don't do Lightspeed Dash in exactly the right part of the line of rings, then you're not gonna go along all of them. It's just like in Sonic Heroes. I don't know how they managed to screw that up. And of course, you always boost directly ahead from where the camera's facing. So if you face Sonic in a different way, you're not going to boost where he's facing. So you'll boost straight into the wall again. What kind of design is that? This mission also trains you to quick step to get lines of rings, which is something that you don't really do often because quick stepping doesn't send you very far, which is normally a good thing considering what its purpose is. See? God, that enemy was right on the screen. I should not have missed it. It shouldn't be possible to miss with a homing attack. It was right there, it was on the screen, but because it wasn't directly in front of me with a camera directly behind me, and this is awkward. Now you've got to walk around to turn around the camera because just hitting the springs doesn't automatically turn you around towards the homing attack chain. Why does this mission have to have a time limit? This mission would be so much more tolerable, and it's so precise, trying to get it right. You can easily drift past the rings that you're supposed to get. And again, I have to ask, what is the in-universe explanation for doing all of this? Like, is Sonic doing a self-imposed challenge? And if so, there's no reason that he can't just move on if he can't do it. There's a lot of things that the day stages introduce. Like, for one, you no longer lose all of your rings when you get hit. As long as you have like a couple dozen rings, you don't lose all of them in one. And you know, I really liked that. I really like how they brought that back with Sonic Triple Trouble because, to be honest, it makes it feel more valuable having a whole bunch of rings. And the Unleashed throws a whole bunch of rings at you. Like, you can easily finish the first level in the game with over 400 rings. So it makes sense to make better use of all those rings, you know? Like, in the classic games, it feels pretty meaningless having like 100 rings. Because, sure, getting 100 rings gets you an extra life, but you'll still lose all of them at once if you get hit. So it's ultimately better to do it this way, where the rings are a lot more like a health meter. It's especially forgiving in the boss fights. Because in the boss fights, well, like, if you're in a 2D section for one, then the cheap thing about a boss fight in the 2D section is that you can get hit and some of your rings will fly towards the camera like in Knuckles Chaotix and you'll never be able to get them back. That feels so unfair. Like, you just get cheated out of them and you can't have any hope of getting them. I don't really like those sections for the sheer fact that, again, the camera's just like it was in the tutorial for the quick step. It's too below Sonic. And so it doesn't really do a good job of showing you what's ahead of you. So you don't have much time to react to the fact that there are walls coming up. They just suddenly appear. I think in the HD version, when you boost, there's this fisheye camera that makes it harder to really see. And there's also the fact that, well... yeah, I failed this a lot. Which really goes to show you how well designed this mission is. But anyways, not only is there a fisheye camera when you boost in an HD level, but I believe that it also sort of changes the music to make it a little more muffled so you can't hear it as well. I don't really like that. There's a lot of people like to make fun of the fact that Sonic goes, "Woo!" and stuff like that constantly when you boost. I feel like that's a lot less annoying in the Wii version, because in the Wii version he also says "nah" and stuff like that. And I feel like that one thing that he says, it feels a lot more satisfying, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, I've never been annoyed by him constantly saying something in response to boosting in this game. And again, it happened again. God, this mission expects you to be so precise. You can't screw anything up. It's so linear. It's not like the previous ring missions where as long as you know to take a certain route, you're guaranteed to win. And why does that fence have to be there? If that fence wasn't there, then I could just jump over it and progress with the level and get more rings. Why are you restricted to only a tiny part of the level? Why can't it be like every other ring mission in previous games where you just one ring short? Oh, thank God.
Piece of cake.
I don't know why it can't be like the ring missions in SA2 where you just collected all of the rings and you weren't just restricted to one small section of the level. Who thought that was a good idea? Wow! He actually does care about his amnesia for a grand total of 1 text box in the hub world. Wow. Oh yeah, his amnesia is totally relevant. Seriously, the plot would have gone the exact same direction if he didn't have amnesia in the first place. Like, we even would have had mostly the same cutscenes, because that cutscene where he starts out complaining about his amnesia, it would have, like, that's not even the vast majority of it. They still would have had the scene where the ice cream man is crying. His amnesia was completely pointless and only served to pad out the length of the cutscenes even more. So now we're going through the hub world of Chun-Nan. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that we have to do first. Specifically, we gotta talk to everyone once again. This is really the only NPC in this whole world that I actually liked the appearance of. Like, the game's art direction and cutscenes were inspired by the animations of Pixar's studio. But I don't really like it, to be honest. I mean, while they look less out of place right next to a cartoon blue hedgehog, I thought the humans in the CG cutscenes of SA2 looked just fine. All I really needed from the adventure games was Mobius and NPCs to balance things out so that you didn't only have humans. This game still only has humans as NPCs. Humans that don't question blue hedgehogs they somehow don't recognize as a hero. And like, I don't really like how the humans look in this game. Like, most of them look pretty ugly, to be honest.
Here we go.
But now we're in Chun-Nan, and this level is a perfect representation of why it's incorrect to think that the Wii levels are hopelessly easy and no one should like them because they have no challenge. Those people haven't played Dragon Road. It's so easy to die here. And that's not even getting into the fact that there's too much stuff in your way. It's so annoying just playing this level because you constantly boost into knee-high walls. And it feels especially insulting when they're knee-high walls because you could have very easily jumped over them. But especially with the way the camera angle was for the first one, it's not exactly quick to register in your brain. It's not a matter of having slow reaction times. Any human playing this game is going to do this on the first playthrough. Especially since those enemies were blocking that knee-high wall, so I couldn't have possibly known that it was coming up in the first place. Why did they think this was a good idea? This level seems to have the same problem that Shamar Day had in the HD version. There's too many stuff in your way. Why do you have to jump while on a long stretch of land that you're boosting on? It takes your Sonic instincts and turns them on their head. Really, the 2D sections are the only good parts of the level. The QuickTime events are easy as usual. And grinding is something that's been heavily simplified in Unleashed. In SA2, it was a balancing act, and you would hold down the B button when you're in the center of them going straight to accelerate. In this game, grinding is literally just, you go there and you just wait to get to the end. Really, the only thing that makes the grinding stimulating is the rail switching, which you do by pressing the quick step buttons. But rail switching isn't really a thing in the Wii version, so the grinding is just sort of an automation thing isn't really entertaining at all. Like, I like grinding in SA2. I don't really think that it was that hard to do. So, like, grinding to me is only useful in this game as a good way of naturally transitioning between 2D and 3D sections of the level. Because, naturally, with grinding, you're not really doing anything. So, it's not like you have the problem where Sonic drunkenly veers to the right. I very clearly went through the center of that red ring! But because I didn't go through it in exactly the way that the game wanted me to, I still fell to my death. Who thought that was a good idea? This bridge section is absolutely terrible. I don't know who thought it was a good idea that you have to fall into this one, and only then can you fall into this one. Like, I guess if you boost, then you can skip it. But I died so many times here when I first played the game. I don't feel like this... Oh, wonderful. I think you have to quick step to avoid those. But look, because the spring doesn't go to the entirety of the bridge, you can easily fall to your death because you boosted to the left of them. This level requires too much memorization. Sonic Adventure 2's level design was a lot like Unleashed. It had a lot of straight lines where you were just going fast. It was divided into speed sections and platforming areas. It was better at the platforming because it actually had tight controls that were actually suited to the platforming. My question is, would Sonic Adventure 2's level design have been better if they had the boost back then? I mean, I don't really know if the boost could have worked in the GameCube era because I don't think games had a good enough draw distance and stuff back then. But the fact remains, the fact that SA2's level design is a lot more linear like this game's ages it terribly, because these days if I want to play a fast Sonic game that's all about going fast, then I'm going to play Unleashed or Generations. Sonic Adventure 2's level design doesn't at all take advantage of the fact that you have a spin dash jump capable Sonic.